After the monumental success of their first entry, Jack and Daxter would see themselves get another stab at the limelight, and thus Jak 2 was born, or Jak 2 Renegade. And with a sequel comes updates. Remember Eco? Fuck that. We use guns now. Remember all that walking? Out with the O and in with the vehicles. Remember checkpoints? Fuck those too. Who needs them? With all the neat additions, however, there are bound to be new obstacles waiting to be tackled. What's good? It's Saggi, and I'm here to answer the age-old question. Can you beat Jak 2 without jumping? Let's lay down some restrictions. Jak's movement is relatively unchanged from the first game, to the point where the same techniques can be utilized. With that being said, there will be no jumping, no double jump, no crouch jump, no roll jump. Now I'll explain the limited list. All of these actions fall into a gray area and aren't necessarily jumps, but I consider them to be. I will avoid these, but will use them if there's absolutely no other choice. These actions being climbing ledges, vaulting poles, jetboard mounting, entering vehicles, vehicle jumping. Last but not least, we have the permitted list. In Jak 1, the movement attack was slowly introduced as they were needed, but in this game, it'll all be implemented immediately. I'm referring to the uppercut, the punching uppercut, aerial spin kicks, the dive, and extended dive. With the rules laid out for us, let's get right into it. The crew takes that ominous structure at the beginning of the first game and they fuck with it, opening a time rift that they proceed to shoot themselves into in a panic. They're all separated and Jak is in prison for 2 years, being a test subject to Dark Eco. Daxter meets us, we bust out, and now it's time to break out of prison. We start the run, but not too long after, one of the tallest ledges in the game is presented to us, and that's no exaggeration. This wall is one of the tallest obstacles in the game, but luckily there is a way to bypass it. Just come over to this pole, extended dive, you're able to just barely make it. No time for jubilation because boom, yet another problem. This stage is a worse obstacle course than Geyser Rock and Jak 1. Although a better comparison would be the Citadel, I suppose. There are 2 options here, fall off the pole or do a ledge grab. Well, fuck all of that shit. Make your way up to the top with an extended dive and come over to the edge, and you can make your way over to the ledge with an uppercut. Getting a punching uppercut is extra credit. I'm encouraged to roll jump here, but naturally I disobey and uppercut my ass open. We get this cool ass sequence where the guards are shooting from the floor below. I didn't know you could be damaged here and thought the bullets were just for show because I've never been hit here. I was proven wrong this day, twice. We make our way to the final room, and of course there's one last fuck you before I make my jumpless escape. When coming off of this slide, you automatically jump from the slide. This isn't up for debate. You can try and dive or kick, but there's a delay right after the forced jump that prevents the player from taking actions for a brief moment. I couldn't find a way to cross the barrier, but remember that limited list? Well, part of that list includes climbing ledges. One ledge specifically. If we uppercut onto this wheel in the room before the slide, we can briefly stand on it and uppercut again onto this pipe. We will then uppercut once more and grab up top this ledge. Now, in the direction of the slide, we want to uppercut into the void, but into the pool of the water near our goal. Swim around to this part of the wall and force your way in, which another pipe will meet you. Luckily for us, the water is fluctuating, so wait for the water to drop low enough so that you can perform a punching uppercut onto the pipe. We then finish as normal. We dispatch a couple guards and we head to the friendly underground member, Torn. We're instructed to retrieve a banner to prove ourselves, and it's here where we run into our first roadblock. To traverse the tower, Jak is supposed to do some simple platforming, which includes vaulting some poles, but as you know, we'll be restricting the uses of poles unless necessary, which means we'll be subjected to only the uppercut. I took around an hour to close a single gap alone. With the first one, at least there was solid ground to connect with. Here, however, once you land over to the other side, you have to quickly make your way to the next two with punching uppercuts. I made it across a few times with the platforms giving me grief. One time, I made it but accidentally jumped, invalidating the progress. But many of the attempts either result in a ledge grab, a pole grab, or a punch that falls a bit too closely to the death plane. Despite the odds being stacked here, I managed to get past this difficulty spike and proceed with the challenge. Although there is no jumping, this level is relatively unchanged. The obstacles weren't difficult enough to pose too much of a threat, if any at all. Moving on. Now I know I essentially said that the previous level had nothing noteworthy of mentioning. However, I'm starting to believe that was a break for what is to come. In the next mission, Jack has to destroy an ammo dump, and to start the mission off, you get chased by a fucking tank. A reverse crash chase sequence? I see you, Naughty Dog. Cool reference aside, this stage used to give me nightmares as a kid, and that same feeling starts to creep back now that jumping has been subtracted. You can make it through this beginning part easily enough, as long as you're paying attention to the tank's targeting, but it gets somewhat funky. Soon after the stage has begun, the tank will break through a wall, continuing to chase you while you have to avoid turrets waiting for you to fall into their line of sight. This wouldn't be an issue if you were jumping, but alas, the power of masochism is greater. After 5 minutes of attempts, I waddle my way to the end of the path, which should have realistically only took 20 seconds. But oh no, that's not all. Of course the fuck not. You get to the end of the path, only it's not the end of the path. And the best part, the only way to progress is to use a pole to vault to the other area. So now you're stuck between a pole and a tank trying to annihilate you. Luckily, or unluckily, depending on how you look at it, while attempting to punch uppercut past the pole, I ended up falling through this crack in the wall, which led to the other side. Immediately after, I was greeted with a short camera transition showing the tank's advance through a wall, meeting me in the same room. Now this sequence is normal, how I activate it is not, and I didn't know this could be triggered in this manner until now. I still have to get to the top of the platform in this room, but at least the tank gunner isn't blasting the entirety of the time. I keep going and see that this gap is similar to the tower a couple missions back, where I have to use a boosted uppercut under the pole. I spend some time here and I nail it, but soon after I bring shame upon my family name by being careless. All of that pain paid off though, because in less than a minute I was back to where I was. Cause I'm a god gamer, bitch. We move onward through rotating machines, followed by a platforming room filled with guards. The room is split by walls that cut off your path and pits of death. This variation of the guard don't shoot, so we just continue through being cautious of the moving floors above death. One final push towards the end and it's business as usual. The final part of the stage plays primarily the same, except where I would normally be roll jumping, I'm instead punching. This next mission has essentially no change to it, but as you can see, a vehicle is mandatory to complete this mission. It isn't even timed. We have to deliver a package, but it's stuck to the zoomer for whatever reason, instead of it being in our inventory like, say, a security pass. I say it's a minor inconvenience, but it has to be done. No biggie. I raced through the red sector and finished relatively unscathed. Oh yeah, so to add an extra fuck you to this mission, it automatically forces you to jump off the vehicle. Sadly, this won't be the only time that this occurrence will pass, but considering it doesn't give me an advantage and it was just added by the dev to give some extra flair, it's acceptable. We're awarded a weapon, the scatter gun, and the next mission teaches you the basics. This has nothing to do with jumping, so nothing noteworthy here changes. Now we get to see some real action. We head to the city outskirts and are tasked with helping Sig take care of some fearsome metalheads. We clear the room filled with a collection of adversaries, but they fall all the same. This is a platformer after all, so we're back putting those punch uppercuts to use. These weird ass pistons for whatever reason slid me up a bit, but everything is fine. Sig blows up a giant tank, which can actually kill you if you don't get behind him like he says, which is the level of detail in games I live for. We continue across a bridge and I'm tasked with bringing the rest of it down, as it is elevated. I believe you're intended to grab the ledge of the bridge to bring it down,
but I just super dive to the top of it and stand on it, and that's enough to activate it. Now remember we had to sit and wait for Sig to charge his Peacemaker to destroy that tanker? Well, in a way, it was a demonstration of what was to come. Instead of waiting on him to blow some metal shit up, we have to defend him so he can blow some metal heads up. We've been taking out metal heads thus far, but these are the ones we're here for. I make for sure that Sig gets his spark and he lets her fly. We come down from the bridge to the beach, and of course we have some enemies waiting for their demise. We remove them from the area and set up for the next trophy kill. Sig starts to charge and these bitches start jumping out of the water. Luckily they're uniform in their maneuver and line up for Heaven's Gates. Sig uses his charge shot to dispatch the spider gunner. We come upon another bridge, and just like the previous one, this one has a part that needs to be let down as well. Also, I was getting my ass handed to me during this mission, and it was constantly one hit away, so that was fun. We come upon the next big bad and defend my guy once more. Side note, if Sig happens to be damaged while charging, he will smack the aggressor back, but will lose some charge in the process, so don't let him get hit. Sig shoots out a PK Thunder, and we keep it moving. I was following our guy, but ended up missing my jump. When I reunited with Sig, he was getting jumped, but my boy was holding his own. I cover his ass, and I let him rip his electro ball into another great terror. We continue forward, and are ambushed by metalheads, of course. It's here where Sig pulls off the sickest anti-air I've seen, and literally 5 seconds later, he immediately disappoints me by jamming his gun. So now I have to fend off the fiends while he fixes his janky ass Nerf rifle. He gets up and is shooting once more, and we clear out the rest of the enemies. We reach our final spider, and it's business as usual. I take out the lizard bitches, and Sig sends one last goodbye to the no good doer. I make my way down to the sewers on Crew's request to destroy some sentries. By the way, the locations tend to be far as fuck from each other, and I'm generally just punching my way to the objectives, opting out of getting on vehicles to avoid the jumping animation. Anywho, I slay some shit, but I accidentally jump and choose to penalize myself by restarting the mission. It was a case of the game eating my inputs, but whatever. I rerun through the first tunnel and come up against the first turret of the mission. I make sure not to take damage from his fire by utilizing Jack's punch to essentially dash. I take it out and instantly fuck myself. There's no way out of the water other than jumping out of it, so that's a reset. I run through this shit again, and again I have the same damn problem. Only this time I did position myself awkward enough to throw off the trajectory of my uppercut, sending me careening to the side of the vent I need to be on. I need to be much more cautious of my actions, as you can see. Whack, whack, no slip up. I take out the lizards and get some metalhead action. They like to play in the dark in this level. The next turret is posted across the winding, narrow bridge of sorts. Since I don't have room to move side to side without falling, I use the punch uppercut to give me enough time to reach the piece of shit before it blows my ass off. Around the next corner is a room full of metal bitches, which I'm positively certain the devs intend us to use the dark bomb for. But for one, that requires jumping, and two, I didn't acquire it. I used Dart Jack anyways to clear the room, and I run into an unexpected roadblock. This ledge is deceptively high and doesn't seem to be reachable, but if you can ever so slightly raise Jack's elevation, you'll be able to super dive high enough to get a foot at the top. Right after that, some more small fries and something a bit larger. You should already know that the platform is always our biggest threat. Remember where I slipped up twice at the beginning? Well, the vents are back, but this time they put the fucking turret on the other side. I don't let that deter me, and I just focus on precision and accuracy and my punch uppercuts. I don't want to land weird and risk flinging in an odd direction, and I want to make sure I time the uppercuts so I'm outpacing the turret, but also not on the verge of doing accidental boosting. I make it to the other side, making it look so sweet, and destroy the penultimate turret. We're now upon the final turret, and it isn't as daunting as the previous ones. It's almost identical to the last one, except platforms are wider. So we can punch to the other side to avoid the turret's fire, and uppercut to close the gaps. Boom, she's out of there. For our efforts, we're awarded our trusty blaster mod, a fan favorite for sure. Just like the scatter gun, the blaster plays out all the same. Crew, yet again, is connected to a delivery mission, but this one is timed, and I guess it isn't really a delivery mission. It's just a race against the clock. Another mission that practically forces you to use the zoomer with how strict the time limit is. I'm glad I'm already familiar with a good portion of the game's map already. I can only imagine being thrown to this mission to basically try and navigate through the new territory while being timed. But then again, I don't recall this mission giving me trouble when I was younger, so it probably isn't that bad, right? I made it with around 20 or so seconds left to spare, just to give an idea how much a zoomer is needed, as well as knowing the map's layout. Sure, you're given a mini-map, but there's no trail, just a jumpy ass icon that can 100% send you in the wrong direction if you use it to find your way. Everything from wild maneuvers in prison to crazy poles and dead town couldn't have prepared me for this. We're given a mission 2 feet across from us, the jetboard course. Now you would think that the course is the problem, but we'll get to that. The real shitter here is the second action after equipping the jetboard is to jump. Jump, press X. That's it. That's all. It's just sitting there, mocking my very soul. For almost half an hour, I tried to come up with ways to pick up the jetboard and leave without having to jump with it, but with these attempts I failed miserably. But I was given a hint that would be useful in the future. I abandon this for now and proceed to other outstanding missions. We punch our way to the power station and warp to the strip mines to rescue Vin, an important tech specialist of the underground. The stage plays the same up until the final section, where of course there's some platforming, but nothing crazy. I just make sure to kill any flying metalheads beforehand so I don't have to hassle with dodging their fire and punching uppercuts to the moving crane shit. They bring a few more of the flying fuckers out to play, but they get swatted like their brothers before them. I almost fuck it up at the very end, but I save it and it looks organic. I secure Vin and start up some more shit because the game literally doesn't give me an option. Here, we enter the eco mining operation and our objective is simple. Destroy the dark eco eggs attached to the various locations. This of course isn't done with your own weapons, but with a turret that naturally overheats. We slay a few dark creatures and without fail another platforming challenge. This lever here lifts this shit here and you're supposed to you know what. But you know what? Fuck that. I super dive and it works just as good to get me there. I just don't get to travel far. High, but not far. Not too far behind that lever, there's yet another one, and this one is accompanied by some pals. I shoot those bastards down and cross the gap as I did before. I'm really within another turret to destroy metal babies, and did I mention I get to enjoy the luxury of these flying metal bitches too? All jokes aside, they're not too much of a threat, and I destroy the eggs, revealing my next path. Right after I kill one of these Centurions, more platforming is presented to us, and at the very end of the segment, I'm startled by some metalheads and jump. I decide it's best to reset to keep the spirit of the run alive. This was practically a dodge after all. This death sent me back to the beginning of the stage, but what's strange about this is you keep the progress of eggs you've destroyed, but not your position. Well, I'm not complaining. I get back to the second Centurion, and at this point, I'm one shot. Yeah, rushing isn't the best strat in this game, but it didn't matter anyway because I managed to slip up one more time from uppercuts and grabbed one of the falling platforms by the ledge, sending me to my doom yet again. I come back through all of that bullshit, bam, whacked by a Centurion. I just have to stop rushing is all. It also doesn't help that there's no green ego pickups here. I come up to the falling plats yet again, and this time I show no fear, executing every boosted uppercut with ease. We end things off right with the cremation of the final egg clusters and some environmental destruction creating us a walkway. Back to Crew, he wants us to pick up some money off the literal street, a mission that, you guessed it, requires a vehicle because it yet again is on a strict ass timer. I fail because of one small mistake and call it a day for the stream. but I'm right back at it, and this time I fail because the guards destroy my vehicle, and I don't want to do another carjacking, so I punch my way to the next money bag, but to no avail. I have a much better go around this time and beat the mission with ease. No jumping required. I head back up to Torn, and he sends me to the pumping station to assist Ashland for some reason. I have a hard time getting on this rotating shit, but I make it up eventually, and I swear it's the most unpredictable spots that cause a problem. I immediately see that the platforms are high as shit and not exactly the most optimal way up, so I hop off and go the back way. I get up top and clear a few bads before the Ashland interaction. Who would have thought there would be an ambush? There are quite a few of them here, and they toast my ass real good, but I manage. The only obstacles came before the actual mission, so nothing truly noteworthy. I am given the yellow sector pass though, so now we can access more of the map. We speak with the Oracle Onan and her interpreter Pecker, and we're tasked with acquiring artifacts. I make it to the temple, and there are definitely some interesting platforming challenges. Right at the beginning, they hit you with the flipping platforming bullshit. It's just a taste here, but it can get rather annoying. I come upon the Dark Eco box puzzle that I remember getting one of my relatives to do for me when I was a young warthog. Instead of relatives, I totally do it myself and don't look at a guide to cut out the trial and error. I take 2 steps and run into a fucking metal rhino. He's no match for me, however, and I continue to get my prize, the sexual innuendo incarnate. I keep it moving down the next path, and another ram head smashes in to greet me, but his intimidation tactics scare me not. Down goes the beast. There's actually 0 chance for relief because we get to face off against the rock slide. This part is typically pretty annoying, but not a pain in the ass. But without jumping, oh boy. The rocks fall randomly and don't have a set path because they are physics-based. Some of the only physics-based objects in the game that can hurt you. This leads to massive bullshit because the rocks can bounce off one another and the environment, then into you. And yes, that includes in midair. I find myself just waiting for opportunity to move, and as soon as I would, crazy damage. But through all of the pain, I pulled myself to the end with a single point remaining. I uppercut across some of the aforementioned flipping platforms and it's smooth sailing from there. Moving forward, I disregard my critical condition and get ready to retrieve the final artifact. There's a small pond to uppercut across and I fumble. I thought I was soft locked, but the fluctuations in the water level gave me the slightest amount of time to pull an uppercut out of my ass. A pit awaits me, and so does an old friend. Boom, a ram head emerges from yet another wall. You know the drill. Bait, shoot, dead. Coming out of the pit, a Centurion makes an attempt on my life, but I'm not having it. I recover a bit of health and activate some more precursor shit, and when I get to the other side, some little metal bastards spring from the ground. I reacted quick enough not to be hit, but that coulda went sour in a heartbeat. An additional pond has to be crossed, albeit more lenient with precursor podiums levitating up and down. More metal heads emerge, but only leave a path of their skulls. A cheeky Centurion lurks in the background, but fails to threaten me as I strike him down as well. I regain the majority of my health back, and I'm hoping that there's no obstacle that impacts this flow I got going on here. I climb one more set of precursor metal, cross one more stream of water, and finally collect the final artifact. Up until now, there have been a few difficulty spikes, but nothing that would completely stop the run. That was until we met up with our old friend Kira, and she decided to let us use the jet board. Remember, the tutorial makes sure that we absolutely must jump, so I start to play around with a few of the more broken features of the game. Well, you see, back in the day, games were made with code, duct tape, and a prayer uttered while half asleep. So you can just do things like this. Through this path, you can make your way to the stadium, but there's a teeny tiny problem. The stage won't be loaded, but fear not. Just come all the way to the stadium entrance, drop your zoomer off, and travel some distance to load in the area. Don't go too far out where the vehicle will deload. Now we can drive the zoomer into the stadium, grab the zoomer, and make our getaway. I'm able to leave with the jet board. But the problem arises that the game doesn't register that the mission is complete. The real mission in the stadium is to complete the stunt course minigame, but it's only accessible after the tutorial, naturally. Nothing works here. I try falling the simulated jump, bump off ledges and rails, using ramps and even the half pipe, but no luck. Reluctantly, I have no other choice than to make the dreaded X press. But oh no, the game doesn't think that's enough dirt in my eye. Bam! Crouch jump. Wait, you thought it was over? Bang! Boost jump. 3 consecutively. Just like that. This one particularly bothered me because it seems to actually be linked to progression. I was already in the stunt area when I started the tutorial and had to figure out the hard way that Kira wants you to jump to a specific spot. You're intended to boost jump up top to the light pillar, but I guess Kira's picky with what she considers execution, and I just uppercut to the top, so only 2 of them were needed. Neither of them gave me an advantage in the game and only served to make this look like a waste of time, but I will press onward. The bullshit keeps flowing though, so once I get that dilemma handled, I have to do tricks on the jet board, which at first is just grinding, but followed up by needing to flip. Luckily for me, I have ways to get myself airborne without jumping and can still pull off my tricks. So she cares if I press X on the first 2, but not these flipping ones? What kind of sick bullshit are you playing at, Kira? After those obstacles, Kira prompts us to complete the stunt challenge, which at first I wonder if there's enough time, but then I remember I can get some pretty good air using the half pipe and score half there, and get the rest via collectible, flips, grinding, etc. Surprisingly, no jumping was necessary, since performing tricks is pretty lenient. We let Kira know we beat the stadium challenge, even though she was right there and even congratulated us. Annoyed by this, she sends us off with info on how to power an old elevator to the Baron's palace. We hit up our boy Vin, and he shows us how to activate it. But I needed to destroy security turrets around the city. So of course, I punch, around the map until I inevitably get gunned down. I come through again, attempt number 2. I do worse. You see, I thought I was being overly clever by taking out the Crimson Guard Zoomers to deny them aerial dominance. However, juggling both the Zoomers and the guards on foot isn't the easiest task. The Zoomers are particularly deadly due to their ability to fire from afar and avoid hitting an unlucky target more often from above. A third go has a similar outcome. I stand my ground, but shots are constantly incoming from different directions. I decide that it would be best if I take the first half of the mission on foot and the second half in the city on Zoomer. Even with the extra protection, I still almost die, but I'm still able to finish the mission. I think it's possible without the Zoomer, but I'm also thinking that would take an unnecessary amount of rage. We head straight to the elevator of the Baron's palace with no hesitation. This stage is pretty interesting. Right at the start, there are a couple of jumps to be made, nothing a few uppercuts can't manage. Then we get to the good part. There are these electrified floor panels across the main walkway, and you're intended to come down to the side and swing on some poles. We're not swinging on some poles. Instead, we will be deliberately giving ourselves a controlled shock in order to manipulate our iframes. We have a limited time before we take damage again and are sent hurling back to the safe spot, but it's enough to walk to the end and slide on into our destination. Shortly after, I spot a turret that springs to life and startles me, causing me to punch off a ledge, womp womp, run it back. I make it back, kill the turret boy, and underestimate the speed of these spinning boxes. Who the fuck uses this bridge? Well, I guess they did say this was an elevator and hasn't been used in forever, implying the same for this bridge. But fuck that, who was walking on it before? Tangent aside, I make my way back to the rotating boxes, nail it, and what's at the end of that last shit? A turret waiting to cook my ass. Be quick, he can for sure melt you or just get good and dodge. We're given a break on the violence and now have to worry about falling to our death. You see, the genius who built this shit thought it would be a wise decision to make the floor hanging tens of thousands of feet above the ground collapsible. But what the creator didn't account for was a mastermind. Boom, roll. Now the fun part, another pole, but this one looks rather troublesome, familiar even. It's in the way of where we need to go, but I still have to try and bypass it. I remember a similar pole back at the tank mission, and I wonder if the same boosted uppercut can be performed, and yes, it can. I was for sure that shit wouldn't work. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Take your shot. I jubilate too early and get got by an accidental boosted uppercut of all things. Terrific. I surpassed the pole my first try, but this is indeed a tricky maneuver. It's so easy to latch onto the pole or just not get enough height altogether. It's something you just have to feel, you know? I line it up, boom, I'm up there. This was the last major obstacle here, as the final section is pretty much a culmination of what was past. Except the rotating turbo cannons. I almost fumble, but I pull through. We catch the Baron talking to the enemy, but not just any enemy, the literal boss of them. That's wild. So we move around, but before getting too far, the Baron gets a hold of us and wants a piece of our jackass. Our face-off with the Baron is pretty straightforward. Dodge, shoot, dodge, shoot. He has a shield and is only vulnerable after firing. He can recharge the shield, but it depletes, which gives you time to refill your ammo. My first attempt was awful, to say the least, and I fucking slipped off this ledge after I beat the first phase. Well, at least I get a health refill. Oh yeah, there's only one box with health in it, and it's at the last phase, so just don't get hit. Once you knock a third of his health down, he smashes his health regen barrier and opens your path to phase 2. Of course, it's connected by platforming, so you just gotta be careful. Phase 2 is more easygoing in my opinion. He fires a salvo of missiles that land at your previous location, so you have to keep moving. What I do is get a good distance away from him, and when he starts blowing, I walk towards him as I shoot. Remember, he's only vulnerable while shooting, so this feels like the right fit. His shit gets fucked up again, which removes his final shield regen barrier and opens up the path to phase 3. You would think the final phase would put phase 1 and 2 together, right? Nope. This time, he forgoes the shield and spams homing flame twisters while trying to ram you. You very quickly could be sent back to phase 1 if you don't space this final encounter out. The twisters eventually explode, so it's best to shoot at him from damn near the other side of the map. That way you don't get caught in a twister ram combo. I pop Praxis out the sky and he starts monologuing in his Dr. Eggman ass saucer. This is another mission that requires a zoomer. I get a tanky one and make sure my fellow underground members get to their destinations safely. Nothing too notable here. Upon our return, Torn tasks us with protecting a site from metalheads in Dead Town. The Chad even gives us a new mod, the Vulcan Fury. There's much more platforming to be done here, but nothing too difficult. It's wise that we still take care, as we can get shot into the swamp and guarantee our demise. A new metalhead, the Sling Blaster, drops in and is rather annoying. Anytime it's hit, it retaliates with a Dark Eco projectile. Luckily, Torn gave us a new toy and allows us to stun lock them, preventing the counter. We keep it going, and another newbie wants to play, the Rapid Gunner. He positioned himself in a way that lets me creep behind these pillars and pick them off. There are more of them, and they improve their formation just a bit. A few grunts welcome death, avidly, but in the background, our gunner guys are gunning for me. The farthest one in the back particularly gives me the business for underestimating him, but I'm able to finish the job. Another group of cryptids meet their maker, and I come upon the home stretch. I'm at 1 HP, and there are 2 slinger bitches with a good distance standing between us. They like to fire in close intervals together, and it's only hyperbolized with their counterattack. I thought it would be too dangerous to walk them down with the Vulcan Fury and opt to blast them from afar, taking pot shots. I take out one, and while I'm finishing the second, he starts to run up. This will seal his fate, as he thought I was a bitch. But a bitch I was not. Blow, bam, done. We successfully defend the site, but we come to the realization that this area is part of Jack 1, specifically Samos' hut. There's a lot to unravel there, but we gotta keep it moving. We come back, and right after that discovery, we meet the leader of the underground, who turns out to be Earth Daddy Samos. Well, kinda. He's younger somehow, but there's no time to waste. We head to the Haven Forest to take down some annoying pests. The Metal Scouts are very agile, so much that Jack can't get a shot in. Speed accompanies their agility, so I believe it's better to use the jet board, but I still don't jump. I catch one coming down, and the game plays an animation of Jack leaping on and off the metalhead creature. I can't control this, but it doesn't help me either. Just another one of those visual flares. I travel deeper into the forest to find my next prey. I find him flying in my direction, in which he averts from. Yeah, if you ride in front of them, they'll change directions, so I need to catch this bastard with occasional grinding. With enough time, I build up speed to take his flying ass down. I continue to his brother and he falls just the same. This next scout was put here to make you question this bullshit. This bitch ass scout likes flying in all different fucking directions, and to put the diarrhea on the shit cake, he flies over spots that require jumping. So I have to hope that he flies in a pattern that allows me to take him down. The biggest problem here is that I need to build up enough speed to end him to begin with. All of these variables may be annoying as fuck to deal with, but I persevere and catch this flying bug bitch. My final target is back near the beginning. I suppose I missed him? He too has an awkward flight path, passing over gaps and grindable branches. He gives you a small window to catch up with him, so I have to make sure I can get enough speed once more to smack down my final enemy. We immediately take care of another one of the Shadow's orders by escorting the lost kid to Vin's place. Nothing in this mission changes, as it isn't necessary to jump, but it is mandatory to use a vehicle. We race through the red sector and we find our way to Vin. As I head south to the city, I decide to take care of the beacons in the water canal. The difficulty here is moderate because situations that could be diffused via jumping are now much more deadly. Bumping into a mine is almost certain to damage you. Too much damage and yeah. So don't do that. I'm bad, so I come harder. I regroup with crew and I'm tasked with helping free forced labor workers so that they can be put back to forced labor? Ethics aside, it's not only a favor for crew, but an associate of his named Bruder. I have to free the lurkers and drive them over to him. I do relatively badly and decide to let myself die. I had a mishap where one of the lurkers didn't want to mount my zoomer, allowing me to accumulate a good amount of damage, which prompted me to get off and let nature run its course. Again, I make my rounds and I'm more skillful with my play. I ran into a curious situation where I had 2 lurkers freed and ready to be transported. I tried to save time by taking both, but the game doesn't seem to include that functionality, so the regular way it is. I finished the normal way, with all sorts of marksmen involved all of a sudden, but we made it. I get another gift from crew, and as I make my way to this mission, the game crashes. I get to the dig site, and the objective is to destroy the big ass drill tethers, which requires you to use the jetboard to grind on them. They also want you to jump on these baby railings, but fuck that, we can just sideswipe them. There are these steam boost shits, but they don't shoot you into the air, but act more like mini elevators. Other than that, nothing too different about this one. This next one is interesting. I talked to our bud Vin and he wants us to close some eco wells, but the destruction devices that would be used were activated and now we're on a timer. That's not the best part. There are various areas that have to be traversed that require the forbidden technique. I start by just going right at it blind, but quickly got to a point that wouldn't be feasible with the normal route. There are 2 specific wheels that have gaps, and this first one was giving me the blues. There's a boosted uppercut that needs to be done here, but the platform is moving and is farther than your average platform. It takes some effort, but I get to the other side and knock out the first wheel. The clock is ticking. I slide through and close the next 4 wheels, 1 to go. The final wheel is naturally the farthest, and I had an ample amount of time until, you know what, just take a look. Despite that shit being out of my hands and basically in the fucking wheel, I still combust and have to redo the entire thing. If you take a closer look, I was like a literal frame away from the mission being completed. Cool. Even with the do-over, I make short work of what remains of the mission and take my win with a smile. Right after the previous mission, we're sent back through the portal to take care of some Red Baron bastards. Oh, not just by any old way, but by turret. We tackle the Baron's aerial forces head on, and they obliterate me, of course. I go again and I scrape by the skin of my teeth. 1 hit point left. That first part is brutal. Yup, first part. I got 2 more to go because that was fun. They play out the same though, so nothing to see here. I go back to the sewer and I need to retrieve a key relic from the depths of the totally not boo-boo water. There really isn't anything too out of the ordinary here except for this part where I lose most of my health. No biggie, I'll just not get hit. I have to hop off the jetboard to get under these spinning drill things and then I die. This is Jak 2, remember? So no checkpoints. I run the whole mission again, and yet again, I find out I died right before the mission was complete. Anyways, we're done here. I have a few destinations in my mission log, but choose to help Ashlyn. There's a suspicious eco tanker bringing a supply of you know what. As Ashlyn tells us to fuck off, this son of a bitch crashes into the bazaar, and guess what? It's filled with metalheads. An ambush. This is pretty much the same as the first Ashlyn mission, only this time we're in the city. No uppercutting needed. I talked to Sig and he wants us to go out and find another one of those artifacts of Mar. The first part of this mission has us activating these buttons to elevate this log shit coming out of the ground, I guess. We need 5, so we get to it. I get the first button down, then these toe-biting bitches knock me into the lava for an instant death. But do not fret. For this rare occasion, the naughty programmers inserted a fucking checkpoint system. Jolly good show. I make it through the 3rd part through this ground pounding part. Look at this shit. What exactly is this shit engineered to do? Anywho, I keep it moving and my dumb ass dip my toenail in lava. Mwah. OTK. The number of buttons remain the same, but I'm still put back at the start of the level, which can be good or bad depending on where you need to go. In this case, it's in my favor. I come over to the underlying dilemma, the pole blimp. I don't immediately address it and drop below to the next button. 2 more to go. I make my way to the start and see that I missed one around that area. This button is fixated next to a rather large gap. A gap that could be traversed by means of Shoryuken perhaps? Wrong. Either it's too wide or I suck too much donkey dong. Or both. 2 things can indeed be right. All of this to try to avoid the inevitable. I take the walk to the pole and make my swing. I jump off, so I decide to reset. Even though vaulting is a limited restriction, I don't deem it necessary to use here, so I opt to drop off. As I make my way back, I end up pressing the last button. I really thought it was on the other side, so it was a good thing that I unlocked myself. With full confidence that I'm done, I head to the blimp one last time, latch onto the pole facing backwards, and gracefully drop from it. Marvelous. I kill some metal bitches, climb the wood platform, and head out. It's what I would say if it was over. I was under the impression for whatever reason that this was the end of the level. I couldn't be any more wrong. If you thought the other pole was a problem, watch this shit. First, we need to punch uppercut over some sinking logs, followed by not 1 pole blimp, but fucking 2. Okay, shouldn't be that big of a deal. Well, if you grab the first pole facing forward like you're supposed to do, you make it much more difficult to drop to your destination. So you want to time the pole and your uppercut just right so that Jack grabs it backwards. Now you can drop with confidence on the other side. This second pole is an absolute nightmare. The same tactics from the aforementioned poles are needed to be utilized here, but it is supremely precise. I tried a multitude of times with different grabbing times, releases, and even started adding a kick to the drop. Nothing was working, but you can just feel that it's possible. Then the planets aligned, and the sun's orientation created a 90-degree angle, manifesting a surge of solar energy to burst through me and give me the gamer skill to conquer this obstacle. I revealed a final hurdle. A test of vertical and horizontal propulsion. At first, I can't manage to get high enough for the ledge, but quickly realized this wood railing to the side can be utilized to my advantage. Although there's a feasible way that I can tell, I continue to fail, falling below and occasionally taking damage, to the point I get hit enough to fucking die. Now this stage has been generous with checkpoints, but not this one. Oh no. Back to the lava logs, I say. I've been on this short ass stage for an hour at this point, but luckily the sun rays were still coursing through my veins and I could still harness it to pull off another drop. I'm at the end now, so all that's needed is to boost uppercut to this platform and we're golden. Another artifact retrieved. We talk to Torn and we get info on some upgrades for the guards. We decide it's best to decommission these weapons. We need to use zoomers to catch the Hellcats and we gun them down. Same mission with no interesting change. The class races are just that, races. There are opportunities to use the zoomers jump, but for obvious reasons, we'll avoid that. No real change here other than I can't use the shortcut. I am yet again given orders to destroy the dark dangers of nature in the forest. Love the music, so revisiting for an extended amount of time doesn't bother me in the slightest. They bring out the A-team for this effort. Cloakers and spiders are our enemies this time around, and they won't shy away from blowing a hole in your ass. Did I mention they have camouflage? I guess it's in the name, right? Cloaker. They do a damn good job at hiding themselves, but they can't hide that bitch-ass skull gem. Well, unless you shoot and kill me from off screen, causing me to start back at 30 enemies with low ammo refills. I play more strategically the next time around, and one by one, they fall to my vengeful carnage. Now we've made it to one of the most notorious missions in the game. I grab the last artifact that's just sitting in the water slums for no particular reason, and proceed to engage an onslaught of the KG. I make it halfway and I'm dwindled down to my death. I was very brash with that attempt and slaughtered them all in my next run. Not sure why this mission is considered one of the hardest, but alrighty. I make my way back to Onin with all the artifact pieces. I play her little game and receive the completed Seal of Mar. Oh yeah, nothing notable, it's just matching the buttons on screen. I need to take the Seal of Mar to the mountain's pass to reveal the location of Mar's tomb, where the rumored precursor stone resides, an ancient relic said to contain an unborn precursor. I'm confident in finishing this mission because it's not really a mission, but come up to this rather bullshit obstacle. All you have to do is hop on a jetboard, grind on these rails, and you're done, right? False. You see, the center of these rails have this big ass light, and you're expected to use the cross button to jump to the next one, and the next one. I spent some time trying to figure out if this is even doable, but then a spark of brilliance. When I dismount the jetboard, I can still shift Jack's direction, so I make sure I turn towards the next rail as if I'm ready to grind again. Since the precursor pipes are considered flat ground, I'm able to stand for a brief second, and in that second, I must remount the jetboard and then grind on the rail. Not once, but twice. Yippee! This, of course, isn't the most simplistic thing, or maybe it's just another skill issue, but I nailed that shit in a timely manner, less than 5 minutes. We take the Mountain Pass relics and we use them to power a laser that reveals Mars' tomb. This really isn't a mission, to be honest, like I said before, but there was a section that gave me the Jak 2 blues. Here we are, just a little over the halfway point, Mars' tomb. This stage is basically Gul and Maya's citadel, but for Jak 2. There are 2 paths, 2 trials of manhood, each with their own challenges to conquer to inevitably activate a button at the end. Now these tests can be more annoying than difficult, but that's not what we need to address. So the gauntlets may not have launch pads like Gul and Maya's, but they indeed have these. I need to weigh my options, so I go to the right side and start grinding out ideas. First, I try to approach the side where these statues are aligned. You're able to finagle your way to the top of them by spin kicking against this corner. You can also fall into the statues, which I thought was a breakthrough, but as far as I can tell, nada. Even though we're in the statue, a wall still resides. You know, the one they're up against. I try a bit longer, but the efforts are futile. I move my efforts to the water. I think for a second that maybe I can damage boost to the top, but I guess Jak's hitbox doesn't rise the same height as his character model, so I end up sliding off back into the pool. There are very limited options when water is involved, and upon my death, I choose to examine the other side. I shift over to the left path, and right off rip, we got some bullshit. Over a floor of dark eco, we have to punch uppercut some pillars that have alternating spike traps springing from them every few seconds. This is all fine and dandy once you get the timing, but up at the top, my arch nemesis rears his ugly head once more. Poles. Okay, let's take a step back and get our bearings. So the right side has water that needs to be jumped out of, and the left has poles. I'm a bit more accepting about the poles, but I can't allow them to discourage me. In fact, I've got a bit of a surprise of my own. I come out of the path to get ready. Now the goal is to uppercut onto this tiny ass ledge, which elevates you. With the added height, we must punch alongside the wall, which in turn will cause Jak to slide upwards. Then we proceed with the uppercut and a spin kick immediately after, and we use the kick to give us more aerial control. We shift Jak over to the center of this squarish architecture. We should land up there, and before landing, I make sure to hold crouch. You're supposed to jump here, but fuck that. We swap out the jump for an uppercut naturally. As you come up, we want to spin kick into this rectangle shit directly in front of us and make sure not to kick too early or we'll slide out like White Castle on a Friday night. If done correctly, you should slowly slide upward and eventually, boop, you'll be in the map. Now while being literally inside the tomb, we have to make our way back to the left path. Once we get used to the fucked up camera, we come to the door but not cross it because that would mean certain death. Instead, we want the door to activate and open, where thereafter we follow a path to the left lined with dark eco. This is where my first attempt ends. Sadly, I get too close to the dark eco and yeah. I go back to the right to see if there's anything else I can do, and no. The area won't change just because I waited for 40 minutes. So I go back to grinding the out of bounds shit for 20 minutes. At this point, it's been nearly an hour of trying to get back into the wall itself, but I start to get the hang of it. I open the door, come down a dark eco path, and prepare for the most crucial part. Now I know I died from dark eco previously, but in order to pull this off, we must dive into a specific patch of eco. Yes, dive into the insta-death pond. As you can see, Jak is practically submerged in water. Well, this isn't the only area the water is located. You see, diving into this random ass area of dark eco will allow you to dive into it. I presume that dark eco uses the same properties as water, except it has an added kill box. Since we're all the way out here, the naughty devs rightfully assumed that no one would ever get to this random ass spot. let alone try to jump in said spot, but that's just speculation. That was the hard part. Now we follow the alleged ego a bit farther into the fluid and perform a punching uppercut into a dive. The uppercut is to put us over the spider egg room, and dive is to dive into the area. You will take fall damage, but this is good. Without explaining all the inner workings of this shit too much, there are multiple invincibility states. Getting damage here triggers an alternate variation. With this in mind, head to the spider egg as usual, but when the cutscene of Daxter ends, book it to the back left corner of the egg, and voila, no Daxter chase. But there's a problem here. I wonder if you can spot it. I need to get Jack back, and it's actually quite simple. Hopefully, all of the spiders are still alive. I killed 3 out of the 4 like a moron, but it's still doable. Come over to the corner and let it bite you. What's supposed to happen is I jump as the spider is attacking me so I can revert back to Jack. Keyword being jump. Without the leap, you can't change back. Or can we? I know we're supposed to jump to change back, but what if I told you, fuck that? You see, Daxter is so small that the spider's lunge attack can slide underneath him, which will for a fraction of a second leave him airborne. This tiny window is enough to change us back. I scope around and try to see if there's an alternative to proceed, and I have to sadly take some liberties. After the chase skip, you have to solidify it by going to the spiderweb trampoline room. How, you say? By coming upstairs, riding the jetboard out of bounds, and performing a hover glitch to it. The hover glitch allows Jack to use jetboard tricks to stay suspended in the air, and as we know, doing tricks requires jumping or some way to get airborne. So in a perfect scenario, I would be able to activate the hover glitch without jumping, fling it to the tramp room, and knock out the Daxter chase. Even with this, there's a looming problem. You're supposed to go past the egg once Daxter initiates the chase. Well, I mean, in this case, it's different, but you know what I mean. Through this path is the button to complete this trial of manhood, but the room is littered with poles like its sister location. Something has to go through, and I opt to go with the poles because vaulting from poles is better than outright taking a jump to try the glitch. Kira already forced me earlier, but I get to choose this time. I run through the room and activate the first beacon laser thing. Trial 1 is complete. I'm not left with too many options, so I make my way over to the right path, where the only way out of the water is to jump up to the ledge and pull yourself up. I really thought this would be a simple one to overcome, but we're severely limited. Other than jumping to grab these ledges, the trial plays out pretty much the same, though I did fall to some minor inconveniences. Our reward for the completion is supposed to be the precursor stone, but as we get into the room, the bitch ass Baron flies his Eggman ass in there, monologues, and proceeds to drill the stone. His boss battle this time is pretty easy. Praxis will shoot out bombs and we need to hit them back before they explode. Making sure your position is right is crucial because it's possible to send a bomb flying crooked. He does start breaking the floor on his third phase, but he's not an issue. We beat him, but he still escapes with the stone and locks up all our allies. Time to save our guys and girls from the death penalty. I die a couple times in the first room. That extra second that it takes to uppercut and dive instead of jumping and diving is critical here. I just decide to clear the room and take it from there. There are more interesting parts of this stage, but nothing that requires jumping. We talk to Crew and he wants us to go back to the sewers and retrieve yet another artifact, but this time we're not alone. Give it up for the escort mission. This mission plays out mostly the same until you come up against these fucking laser bitches. 3 hose heads block off the path by swinging their lasers to and fro, and I need to end them. Of course, the first time around, I wasn't exactly sure how to efficiently tackle this without jumping, so I die. Womp womp. Bonus time, this is Jack 2, so where do you think I'll respawn? Is that your final answer? Well, if you chose 2, you're correct. 3 works too. We make it back to the laser trio and I allow myself to take too much damage. I do take them down, but now I'm one shot, and as I'm trying to take down the next trio, Yes, next trio. Yep, back to the beginning. It's all just practice for the real run, I promise. Slap some baddies, trio lasers, boom, killed all 6. I still take a substantial amount of damage, but I press on. I have 1 hit point left before I'm done for, but that doesn't stop me from slaying the infested area until one gets too close and gets a nibble off. Right at the end too, but it matters not. We run it again. I get to the double trouble section and clear their asses out. I don't get hit as much and the interaction is smooth for the most part. I stand my ground once more, but with recluse. I try to stay back as much as I can to lure the hose heads to their demise. One gets smart here and tries firing his laser, which I have to deal with, or it could single-handedly knock off one of our squad mates. This allows another metal head to drop behind, and I miss my shot on him and take damage. I'm so low I could step the wrong way and die. I'm firing on all cylinders here, no pun intended, and they keep the pressure up until the bitter end. I get rid of the remaining pests and finish the mission with a shoestring of vitality. Jumping would have worked wonders here, as you can see. I talk to the underground and I'm informed that blast spots have been spotted en route to the hideout. We need to handle them before they get to the underground hideout, or... Eager to scrap some crimson metal, I head right in, only to realize I haven't recovered any health after the sewers and I'm electrocuted. I actually died to a guard here, but it happened so quick that it looks like a bot got me. Cool. They give you a sense of urgency when you see that they're scattered far apart from each other, but they all have to come to the same area. A zoomer could be used, but it's unnecessary. By the time I got to the final spider, he was near the hideout, but I was already near. Explode that bitch and we're golden. We need to beat the class 2 in order to qualify for the big race, but Kira gets to talking shit and Jack is all like, fuck this shit. Now it's up to Daxter. This is similar to the previous. Shortcuts can only be used via jumping, so we're riding this one out legit again. I fumbled the first go around. To overly aggressive racers, you know I get my run back and smoke the competition. Immediately after the class 2, I had the crew who bet against us and wants us to throw the final race. All that meat and none of it is a part of his brain. Jack essentially says fuck that dumbass gesture, and as the interaction transpires, that whiny bitch Arrow pops up and challenges us to race through the city. We have to navigate through these rings to the end of the race. Missing a single ring will result in a failure. I make one too many slip-ups and meet him at the end. Loser. This race usually isn't a big deal, but remember, we're not jumping, and the vehicle hop actually has some utility that we must forsaken. You can use the zoomer hop to make sharper turns, as well as push you in a suitable direction for the situation while turning. But we gotta do it the good old-fashioned way, without race tech. After a couple of uneasy attempts, I slam Arrow's arrogant ass and leave him in the dust. The hopping makes it so much easier, but we made it. After all of that excitement, I go and talk to good old Vin, and he sends me to the strip mines yet again. We're tasked with destroying some metalhead eggs, so naturally we have to traverse a damn death course. I spent some time trying to make it through said death course and come up to yet another roadblock. We're expected to grind on this rail and jump to the next one. After becoming stagnant, I try my head in another mission. Maybe with fresh eyes, I'll be able to see a path. I enter Dead Town, and in this mission, we are tasked with retrieving a life seed from Samos's hut. This is what we came to defend after we were awarded the Vulcan Fury. We need to break our way through a multitude of architectural structures with none other than the Titan suit. After searching the premises, I couldn't find a way to complete the mission without the suit and without jumping, so I continue with the rocket propulsion. The Titan suit is a vehicle, so this is as valid as a zoomer hop, except zoomer hops are almost never necessary. This stage played as normal, nothing notable here. Okay, so here's where the time travel shenanigans are really in your face. The seed we just got was a seed planted by Sandover Village Samos before we came to the future. We now have to take said seed to the forest with the Shadow, aka Haven City Samos, so that he gains the power to eventually become Sandover Samos. I like Daxter's quip about how we're the reason he became a sage. Anywho, all we do is defend Samos, kinda like defending Sig, only Samos is passive and a glutton for punishment. Nothing to really comment on. Instead of following that up, we go talk to Bruder and do this lurker mission again. This is for sure padding, or maybe they wanted to give Bruder more spotlight? I don't know, I have to transport them with a zoomer. My very last one got stuck, so I had to totally not abuse him, but that was the only thing that really happened. I inevitably returned to the strip mines to finish the deed. I tried shortly to get past the first rail with alternate paths, but say fuck it and try to grind, and to my surprise, the railing does not split here, so I can proceed. Better to discover it now than later, I suppose. But 2 steps later, more damn rails. I thought I was being smart by using this tree and wall to climb the wall, but the naughty devs put a fucking invisible wall here, so your height stops. Another moment arises where I just grind the rail with reckless abandon, and just like the last time, it works for me. If you think that's gonna be a running thing, you are sadly mistaken. I'm sadly mistaken. This gap is annoying than a bitch, and a difficulty spike that I didn't see coming. I want you to jump into grinding on the jetboard, but that jumping part has got to go. So we find this pole right here, and we'll be using this for height. We want to punch uppercut to the rail, and as we're coming down, want to mount the jetboard to initiate grinding. The input window is already precise, but we also have to get enough distance, align with the railing, and hope that he doesn't just bounce off for no reason. Luckily, I get the stars to align in a timely manner and proceed, but boy does it get worse. I cross this half pipe and I'm greeted with some more bullshit. Now we have this moving platform that leads to 3 identical pipes. So glad the devs liked this idea so much that they put it a 3rd time. I try my luck and fall the first time, and to my surprise, we get one of those rare ass checkpoints. A super clutch one at that. I spawn right in front of it, so I knock this out quickly. That literally doesn't matter because the rails are done playing games. Right after that, we're supposed to grind, jump, then grind again. There are no platforms near the second rail to possibly boost over to, and this sits over a wide gap. I noticed pipes on either side of the starting position, but I couldn't get him to stand on them. Even if I could, they aren't close enough to rail 2 to make a difference. Instead of trying to stand on those, why don't I try and stand on the rail? I know earlier I said you can't walk on these, but you have to remember, these older games are made with spit and polish. Long story short, if I directly walk on them, I'll slip off. But if I land on them from, say, an uppercut, I get the slimmest fraction of a second to take another action while standing. After 10 minutes, I see a glimpse of it actually working, and not too long after, I get the uppercut off and get the jetboard out, but I didn't get enough distance. We hit the half-hour mark, and I'm just getting cheated at this point. I mean, look at this shit. This just shows me it's 100% doable, just under an extreme set of strict circumstances. I start to really feel how to perform the sequence. I start to become one with Jack. With this newfound fusion, we take ourselves up and over that bitch-ass rail and grind on that shit like a bad Friday night decision. Just like the last victory, we're presented with another set of obstacles, which I'm positively certain can't be done. So I just don't. Finally, a wall that lets you scale it, and in the most convenient area at that. Sure, it would have been nice to skip those other parts, but this has to be skipped, so I'll take it. This is the final part, and all you need to do is ride the jetboard into the hanging crate. Even though they want you to jump onto it, you don't have to. What a ride. Time to destroy some more barren shit. This is another unnecessary Titan suit mission. The Titan boost is allowed, so I'll again do my best to stay grounded. As soon as you break down this wall, you're expected to boost over it. I'm just not doing that shit. Instead, let's just walk outside of the map. If you come over to this specific part of it, you can fall down and pass that entire first section, which may or may not be a pain in the ass without jumping. Oh yeah, make sure you stay near the top of the slope when proceeding, or the map just won't load at all. After some deaths and boosts, I make it to the control room and well, I destroy the controls, which naturally initiates a self-destruct sequence. Of course, you have to run back through the level that we skipped for the most part. It actually is doable without jumping, but with my luck, I get to witness shit like this. Once that's settled, we get ready for our final race, the Class 3 race. Our prize will be access to the Baron's Palace. Our rival is Arrow, and he's come to race us one last time. Despite being the grand champion, Arrow goes down with ease, and that's about it. Nothing to talk about here. Now with clearance, we can get into the Praxis Manor, and let me tell you, I wish we didn't. I know there have been some awful stages, but this one sits at the top of the pyramid. For starters, we have poles right at the beginning, followed by falling platforms. Make your way across the second set of plats and avoid this random ass, fat ass gun on the left. There will be 6 kgs situated directly across the room, waiting to strike. Taking them out swiftly from afar is advised. Simple enough, right? Well, now let me introduce the difficulty. Once this window is shattered, you have to grind with the jetboard and are nudged towards doing that X action. The key here is to dismount once Jack is onto a certain section of the railing so that he boosts off in the direction we need. This took an embarrassing amount of time to get the hang of, and even then I couldn't guarantee it. Major obstacle 1, down. Moving forward are 3 more dropping platforms, and right afterwards, another gun. But the next part was teetering on impossible. There are multiple separated rails that need to be grinded on to get to the other side. Naturally, they want you to jump to the next rail mid-grind, and naturally, we rebel. So the most consistent way of crossing this path is to punch uppercut to this third rail from the right, spin kicking and mounting the jetboard mid-air. You grind when you hit the rail, but you need to let go for the slightest of seconds in order to veer over to the next one and start grinding on that one too. The problem is, when you jetboard after the spin kick, Jack will sometimes spin uncontrollably during the grind, which will make the next transition difficult if not impossible. Once you've gotten onto the second rail and begun to grind, you're met with a gap that can only be closed with a dismount. All that other shit sucks, but this next part is the real hope killer. So at the end of this second rail, a dismount must be performed, and as you hit the next rail, you need to punch uppercut into a kick to pass it. You have to get close enough to the end of it to close the final gap, as well as land on the rail on a specific area to allow you to even take an action to begin with. You can slip off, the game can eat your input, fall short of the gap. It's just a culmination of pain. But once you pass that, the suffering is almost over. That's the huge difficulty spike. Take out some more kg and knock this saucer down. Now this shit is jank. Sometimes you grind on it and it just stops you abruptly. Other times you're unable to grind at all and fall to your death. But I figured I'd grind in the right direction so when I dismount, I don't go flying in the wrong direction. The home stretch is here. You come down and pass another gun while slamming some ass. The palace has a few more falling floors and 2 more at the very end to really fuck you if you fall. But once you pass those floors and enter that elevator, we can let out a sigh of relief. It's over. By far the most difficult stage in the game for this challenge. Oh yeah, did I mention if you fuck up at any point, it's back to the start. Not a single checkpoint. But this is Jak 2, so you knew that. The footage for this I did not stream. I had to do it on my own. I just could not sit on stream for hour upon hour upon hour trying to get this attempt to go green. But it will be on my Patreon. Following that monstrosity, we have to meet up with Crew one last time. You see, this precursor stone that we've been after is valuable to everyone, but Crew along with Praxis wants to use the bomb to blow it open, which will destroy the planet and possibly the universe? Not super sure, they just hammer the point home of everything.
Everything?
All things. Every single thing.
We're the hero, so the Crew we go. He's at the top of this factory with his precious boom boom, so we have to make it to him first. Yay. We traverse a robot manufacturing facility that has acid pits. Seems like the perfect place to keep a bomb, right? There are areas that take some work to get past, but nothing could compare to the palace. Not by a long shot. We make it to the top of the tower and we face our old acquaintance. But there's no time for talk. We take down Crew and we take care of one of Haven City's biggest issues. There isn't anything too amazing here, but the platforming was fun with the conveyors, I guess. Before Crew croaked, he hit a special item in one of his machines because reasons. It's rather important, so we need to get it. It's just whack-a-mole, and this shit does not count, so don't even try it. Next, here we go with another Titan suit mission. This time, we get to go scuba diving, and since this is a PS2 water level, of course it has an oxygen gauge that depletes rapidly because fun. There are a few areas where we need to use the booster, but a couple we can just get over by punching. Only notable thing here is how shit the controls are and how much damage you take from these homing mines. Oh yeah, and the metal heads that this shit was not designed to handle. After the underwater tour, we meet up with Sig, who was sent on an unalive mission to receive one final artifact, but the area was swarming with metal heads. This wouldn't be such a big problem if it weren't for...
Shooting this is only gonna get it mad! Run!
Yeah, we get to be in another chase sequence, reminiscent of the third mission with the tank. We have to outpace the centipede or risk being eaten, and litter throughout our death pits and moving platforms. There are 2 chases, and the second one is where the most annoyance can be found. The first one is a taste of the bullshit, but this one is a mouthful of it. We have to move through some lasers, which is tame, but then they throw this flipping precursor bullshit in there. Sig is ahead during these sequences, and for this one, he shoots the platform so he can jump onto it, but it almost immediately flips back. It looks like you have to be quick enough to hitch a ride with Sig, but I couldn't manage it. So we have to wait for it to flip, and then we can flip it back to progress. This only gives the centipede some distance on us and puts an even hotter fire under our feet. Once you get past this shit, you have to get over these shifting floors that protrude inwards and outwards. These are in the first chase, but are especially egregious here. If you're not fast enough, you'll miss the cycle and croak. Then we move to more flipping platforms that Sig also flips, leading into some more shocking shocks. I only made it to this electrified moving platform thrice, and only once did I pass it. Luckily for me though, it's the final obstacle for this dreaded underground city. We move ahead, Sig monologues, and lets the metal critter get the best of him. But we must keep it moving. After that mishap, we make our way to Kira's to transfer the Rift Rider to the Metalhead Nest. We're trying to get back to our time and need to get this there to use the Rift Key. Luckily, those shitty lurker missions paid off and Bruder comes to our aid. But we need to defend the balloon's ascent from Metalheaders. I let Big Green bite the dust on my first attempt and second attempt. I helped my allies to safety and they carried the rider to the nest. We'll meet them there. Nothing too crazy in this mission. This next one isn't really a mission, just a story revelation. So turns out the entire time, this old ass bitch Core was the metalhead leader this entire time and had been playing both sides to get his hands on the precursor stone. Praxis is like, fuck that, and charges to his demise. Metal Core dismisses himself, and the Baron reveals that he has the precursor stone right here, ready to be blown to the moon right before his last breath. We disarm the bomb and snag the stone. With everything in order, we head to the Metalhead nest to finish this war. We're introduced to some Metalheads as we land in the Dark Creature's home, but soon after we find the gun, Mars Gun. We insert the stone and blaze a hole in the nest for us to enter. We battle our way deeper into the nest, which isn't too difficult. There's surprisingly low enemy variety here. I'm at the nest, and there are only like 3 Metalhead types. I guess everyone's out attacking the city. We push into the opening we made and get ready to end this madness. We meet Metal Core, and he gives us the big revelation of the game. This boy that Core has been caring for is Jack. He was sent to the past where he's meant to grow up, where he eventually comes to the future and meets this confrontation. Yes, time loop shenanigans. Core shoots us, and we engage in a final conflict. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this boss is considered difficult, but I just don't see it. Well, I get how it can get difficult if you die so much you run out of ammo, but other than that, just use all of Jack's equipment. I knock Core off his pedestal and knock him off his feet, where he proceeds to try and escape and fails. We send Samos back with the kid to complete the time loop, and we celebrate our victory the good old American way. Now we can answer the age-old question: can you beat Jack 2 without jumping? Well, it depends. Let's look at some Carfax. The Webster Dictionary definition of a jump states that jumping specifically is relegated to using your feet and legs to lift off the ground with the strength of your muscles. Vehicles don't have muscles, so they can't jump technically. But what about the jetboard? This is an interesting one. Well, Jack isn't actually the one causing the jump to happen. The jetboard has its own propulsion system, which is used to keep it hovering. This same system can be used to boost in the air or boost after a trick. If Jack was to do a jump on a jetboard, he would detach from the board itself, which you see he doesn't. But what about the poles? Again, jumping regards to using your legs, and vaulting poles is strictly his arms. But what do you think? Do these technicalities validate the run, or are they irrelevant? Let me know in the comments. I say, yes, this is possible. But if you can't accept that, it's a yes with 2 jetboard jumps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. I'll be continuing this series in the near future, so stay tuned. Deleted footage or footage not found in streams can be found on my Patreon as well as my script. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm Saggi, and I'm also out.